Atlanta 911 operator 6074.
I need somebody. I need Lake Haven Way right now.
Okay, sir.
Oh, my
Sir, you have to calm down, please. I can't help you like that.
God. Lake Haven Way, please. I think my wife was murdered. Tiffany! Tiffany!
When I first got to the neighborhood, I could see Mr. Pugh standing in the street. He looked frantic. He was waving his arms around. He kept repeatedly saying that his kids are in there, that his wife's not answering the phone. We drew our firearms and entered through the garage door. We moved from that ground floor level up the stairs where there was 2 juveniles sleeping in one of the bedrooms. They appeared to be unharmed. We ultimately got to a closed door that led to a bedroom. And then we found the victim. She was lying on her back in the bed. She was motionless. Her eye was extremely swollen, oozing blood and fluid. Also, there was a small infant on her chest, crying and kind of tugging at her hair. I checked her for a pulse or any other signs of life, and there was no pulse.
It was pretty obvious to me that she was killed by gunshots. There was a bullet hole in the wall behind her, and there was blood everywhere.
Tiffany was found with 2 bullets in her body, one to her lower chest area right under her breast, and then 1 shot to her eye. Because of the trajectory of the bullet, we knew that the first shot had to come from outside of the bedroom, and then the person who killed Tiffany got closer inside and then shot her in the face.
I did a walkthrough of the house. Nothing was in disarray. Didn't look like anything had been taken from the incident. So initially, it appeared to me that it wasn't a burglary.
As we went downstairs, we did see in a bedroom that's on that basement level, a window. The screen was actually removed out as if someone cut the screen out purposefully and opened the window to allow someone to enter into the space.
It appeared to be our point of entry, and everything tells us something. And what that tells us is it's quite possible that it was planned. We initially felt like it was a targeted attack. With any homicide investigation, it's all hands on deck.
Our family was pretty close. My wife and Tiffany spoke every single day and twice on the weekend. She was 5 years older than her brother, so she became kind of like a built-in babysitter and always protective of him. She was very close to her brother. She was never really wild. She was focused on going to college and landed at Clark Atlanta University. Out of college, she worked at Delta first as an analyst, and then she got promoted to be a category manager. She was very, very, very proud to have moved that to that level, and I was proud of her as well. So she was very excited about where she was going.
When I first met Tiffany, she always had a smile on her face. You just kind of gravitate to her because she's just so full of energy that you could just feel the moment that you meet her. She and I got closer as she was expecting her first child. I enjoyed going to her house and, kind of watching her be a mother. And she was just caring, loving, nurturing. She was just, such a wonderful person. I miss that bond and that connection.
When talking to Mr. Pugh, he had no tears. People grieve in different ways. I can't say that I've never seen anybody that didn't have any tears when they just lost their wife. And I took note of that, and we decided to investigate Andre. I was able to do some research and find out that the East Point police were called to his house on a domestic disturbance in January of the same year, in which a gun is involved. At the time, officers on the scene learned that the marriage was coming to an end. Tiffany was going to be looking for an apartment. She was leaving him. That could be a motive. At this point in the investigation, we see everyone involved as possible suspects. Even though I had questions that I needed answers to. It's very important that the person that you're interviewing feels like that you're on their side. This man has just lost his wife. Myself and Lieutenant Buchanan went in very sensitive and very sympathetic. This is Lieutenant Buchanan. I appreciate you talking to us.
Oh, it's no problem.
They say you're a big DJ?
I am.
Pretty good?
Very well. I mean, I was DJing about 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I met everyone there is to meet, and I had a very good night tonight, and I'm still kind of upset I'm holding all this money on me right now.
Mm-hmm. If you would, just give me your start to finish version of what happened.
Okay, I work at Club Onyx, which is, of course, the strip club downtown. Had a good night. Left work probably about 5:15 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I received a phone call from ADT, and they left me a voicemail saying, your alarm is going off, please call me. So I called the number back. I said, did you notify the police? She said, yes, East Point police has been notified. I said, if you don't mind, can you just turn off the alarm? That way you don't wake up the kids. At that point, I called my wife. Called her 3 times. She didn't answer. Once I called her, I called Cliff. He's the manager at Club Onyx. I said, I need you to come to the house ASAP.
Speaking to Andre, I felt like we were getting some information that wasn't adding up. I mean, he's just lost his wife and didn't have a lot of emotion. And why'd you have him cut the alarm off if somebody's in your house? Those things gave me pause. What did you do the minute you got home?
I go into the house. When I go into the house, I look in the dining room. Then her door, because she usually sleeps downstairs on Saturdays because I work late. So I said, Tiff, babe. So I turned on the light and I just saw a body. I said, babe.
Did you notice anything when you saw her?
It just was like she was asleep.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it just like you laying in the bed. I mean, again, it just was a body. I did not go and say, babe, I did not do that.
Okay.
I didn't notice any blood or anything. I just
okay.
Just there.
Then why did you not go and try to wake her up?
Oh, I wasn't. I was looking for my kids. I was scared. I ain't gonna lie, I was scared.
He admitted that he turned on the light. There's no way he couldn't have seen blood had he turned on the light. Her body would have been 5 to 8 feet total away from the light switch. At this point, we don't believe we're getting the whole truth, so we need to get more direct in our questioning.
So I don't understand. You say when you went to see your wife, did you touch her? Did you say, hey, baby, did you grab her?
No, I didn't get that close to her.
Why?
I just saw a shadow. I mean,
that makes no sense to what you're telling me, and that's why I'm trying to get some sense about this.
Right? Why does it not?
Because I'm married, and if I call my wife, I'm go hello, and I'm gonna go. You hear me talking to you? I'm gonna shake her. I'm gonna touch her. I'm gonna walk up to her. You saying you only saw her shadow?
No, I didn't say I saw a shadow. I saw a body in the bed.
Did you see any blood? Did you see?
No, I didn't see none of that.
So what would make you think something's wrong with her?
Because she was just unresponsive. She never unresponsive.
Did you touch her? Is what I'm asking you.
No, I did not touch her.
So how you know she's unresponsive?
Because she didn't respond to me.
I just don't understand this.
I mean, it feels like you're trying to.
This was not a random act, and that's what you should know, and you should be concerned about.
And I'm very concerned.
Somebody came and killed your wife. It's impossible for you to have walked in that room and turned on the light without knowing she was shot. That's impossible.
I'm trying to tell you what I saw. I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
What part of your body did you see there?
There was blood everywhere, man.
I mean, you can't do it.
I mean,
It's like walking
she
through
had
the
a
room without a chair.
She had a burgundy. We got burgundy comforters. I looked and I just ran upstairs to check on the kids. I called her. She didn't move. I ran upstairs.
You know, you told her already your dispatcher, I think my wife is dead.
Right. I mean, I
Well, why
called
would
her.
you think that? Because you called her name. You had to see she was shot, sir. You had to.
I'm not a professional.
You don't have been professional. This just common sense looking, you know?
Nothing's taken out of the house. Wasn't a robbery. Nothing.
And that's, I mean, I'm trying to figure it out.
Why would somebody just come kill your wife?
I don't know.
Was she in a mob? Is that your only problem?
Yes. Again, I don't know what's going on. But that's my heart. She's my heart, man. My wife.
Y'all have any domestic problems?
No, we didn't have no physical domestic problem. But we was going through it a little bit, but nothing physical. It was basically disagreement. No, she never called the police on me.
Because we have a record of her calling the police on you multiple times here.
Multiple times?
Yes, so that you had a gun and she was afraid of you. Oh, and she thought you were loading a gun and you're not familiar with this report?
Oh, that was, I remember that. That was, she called that thinking I had a gun where I was loading a gun where that was not a gun. That was the statement.
Well, why would she? What was
Because
going on for her to think that? I mean,
because
she's been fighting or something. Because I load my gun every day and my wife ain't never called the police on me.
No,
Just getting an apartment.
she was getting one. She was about to move out.
Were you happy about that?
No, we was discussing that. We was actually about to start counseling. I was having an affair. And she got upset. And we started to, she basically took her rings off and then we reconciled back in February.
And y'all had some problems.
I mean, we young couple, we had problems, but we had good days too.
Oh, you saying you didn't do this, right?
No,
Okay, let me ask you a question. Did you hire anybody to do this?
no, what money?
There's questions that we have to ask.
We have to answer this. We have to.
I understand. I understand you have to ask these questions, but I'm not your man, brother. I'm not. I am not your man. I just, honestly, I feel like you're trying to beat me up to say, yeah.
No, I'm not trying to, no, because let me tell you something. The truth always comes out, so I don't have to beat anybody. And the biggest thing that helps is you have a video system, and we're going to go through that video system left and right. So if you're telling the truth, I mean, you don't have anything to worry about.
I'm trying to figure this out just like you trying to figure it out. And I hope you get to the bottom of it.
At the end of my interview with Andre, some of his answers didn't really jive with us. A normal person, if they feel their wife has been killed, they're gonna go check on them. Or if you're gonna say that your wife is dead, you probably should know that. At that point, I feel like he might be involved in this. I just want to know to what extent. Cliff Adams was the boss of Andre Pugh. In the interview with Mr. Adams, he told us that Andre called him and told him that someone had broken in and came in through the basement of his house, and this was even before Andre had made it home. That was a pretty odd statement, as we called the alarm company and found out the alarm sensor that went off was on the dining room. Andre Pugh could not have known that someone came in through the basement of his house before he's even made it home. Andre had camera on the right side of the house, left side of the house, on the porch of the house, 2 on the back side of the house, inside the foyer of the house, but the shooter was able to evade all video cameras in the house.
We believe the person who had to have committed this crime knew the house and knew how to avoid all the surveillance camera systems. No camera picked up anything until right after the murder. When we see Tiffany's son, we believe we see someone leaving, which is why he's walking to the door. And then unfortunately, when the child comes back towards the camera, you can actually see what we believe to be blood on his onesie. We believe the baby was in the room when the shots occur because of how quickly you see him on camera after the shooting. It's heartbreaking. In the video, there was this black car that kept circling the block. And the reason why we know it was the same black car is because a front light was out. Then we see another car that pulls off in a cul-de-sac. And we noticed that there was a car registered to Andre that was similar to the car on the surveillance video. And so we're now watching how these two cars interact with each other. And then right before the murder, we see the black car pull up to the house, and we see that other car that was in the cul-de-sac leave. We believe that these two cars have something to do with the murder. We needed to find this black car with this one headlight out. Speaking with Tiffany's friends and family, Andre had been cheating on her for years. Tiffany was the breadwinner in the home. She was ready to move forward with the divorce, and Tiffany wanted to sell the house, and Andre wasn't able to afford the house that they were living in. This was a huge 4-level home. He had his man cave downstairs, his movie theater. This was going to be gone for him. He was a very flashy individual. He was someone who wanted to parade around with money and things of that nature. So he was going to lose his lifestyle.
Tommy Jackson, Tiffany's dad, had expressed some concern about her safety and wanted her to leave a little bit sooner than she did. And he said, hey, I don't know if you know this, but Andre has a second cell phone. During our initial interview with Andre, he made it very clear to me that that was his only cell phone.
Is that your only phone?
Yes.
Once we found that out, I obtained search warrants and went to Mr. Pugh's house to secure that second cell phone.
I know it's not easy, but you're here.
I understand. I need to get, he's got another phone.
Okay.
I need to get that from him. I've got a search warrant here.
Okay.
Is it this is in your name, right?
No, this is not in my name.
Okay, whose name is this one?
This is actually in a friend's name.
Okay. And who's that?
Adrian Harley. They lent me this phone yesterday.
Yesterday?
Yeah.
When Andre told me his story, I didn't buy it one bit. For weeks, Andre called Tommy Jackson on that phone number. Now we need to find out, why are you not telling us the truth?
A horrendous crime. Police found Tiffany Pugh's body in one of the bedrooms of the home, and one of the children in the home was clinging to the woman's body.
My worst fear came to reality, but I still didn't believe it was happening to me, even though I knew in my heart that it did happen. The police told me that they were suspecting Andre because of some of his answers were not adding up. But if you weren't involved, then what reason would you have to not tell the police everything?
We do an extraction of the data and found out that between the two cell phones, there's some missing deleted texts before and after the murder from someone named Adrian Harley. And then we were able to determine that he lived in Alpharetta, Georgia, and one of the vehicles that were registered to his address and Infinity closely matched the vehicle that had pulled up to the Pugh household the night of the murder. We knew from the neighbor's video that there appeared to be two different vehicles that were involved in this crime. My first instinct was that Andre and Adrian were involved in the murder.
We learned Agent Harley is the best friend of Andre Pugh. He was the best man at their wedding. He was the godfather to their son. So he had a position of trust with Andre. The cell phone towers showed Andre and Adrian traveling together towards the home right before the murder. Then it also showed Adrian's cell phone circling the neighborhood around the same time that we saw that black car with the driver's side parking light out in the surveillance video. And it showed Andre's phone also in the neighborhood right before the murder. That was a red flag for law enforcement because when Andre told police that he was near Club Onyx, the phone records show he's lying.
I went to Adrian's house. Before I get his cell phone, I wanted to talk to Mr. Harley to find out his whereabouts the night of the murder. How well do you know Andre?
I've grown up with him. I was the best man at the wedding. I'm the youngest son's godfather.
I just want to talk to you about what your timeline was that night and before and after.
At the club with him.
At the club?
Yes,
at
sir.
Which club?
Club Onyx.
Club Onyx.
Yes, sir.
And then after the club, where did you go?
I went over to Felix Bar.
Where is that?
That's down the street from Onyx.
Okay, and then about what time was that?
5 o'clock, roundabout, and then I came home.
Okay, so basically the whole night of Saturday night, Sunday, you were at Club Onyx area and then you came back home, which is here. Okay. I didn't call Adrian out immediately. I knew he was lying at that point because I already had his cell phone records that actually showed him in the area of the murder at the time of the murder. But my plan was to go see the car, get his cell phone, and then continue my investigation. Do you have your phone with you?
I have my work phone, yes.
Okay, can I see it?
No, you can't.
Okay, I've got a search warrant.
Okay, take it out.
You don't have any weapons on you, do you?
No, my weapons are in my vehicle.
Okay. I'm getting my jacket. Can you stand by just a second with Sergeant Walters? I'll be right back. Once I started explaining to Adrian Harley that I needed to take his cell phone, his facial expressions had changed a little bit from cordial to a little bit apprehensive. At that time, I called Alpharetta Police Department to assist us. If somebody tells you they have weapons in their car, what's to say they don't have a weapon on them? By the time I got out of the car, Mr. Harley was waving his arms, screaming, yelling.
I want you to call
Alpharetta
your
PD is on the way here. Sir, if you go toward your car, you're going to be arrested. You're going to stay right here.
Oh, no. I didn't touch you. I didn't touch you. My hands are away. If you want me from my
I'm going to tase you.
If you want me from my hands,
Put your hands behind your back. Your back. I'm telling you. Put your hands behind your back.
What's that?
Raquel! I'm telling you.
Raquel!
They know where we are.
Police brutality! Get off right out here.
Just put your hands where I can see them. Cuff him, please.
Mr. Harley became very agitated. He was screaming to his girlfriend in her apartment, and we're trying to keep him away from his car because he's already told us he has weapons there.
Close the door! No, close both doors. I close both doors. I don't trust these motherfuckers. Close the door! Close the damn door!
Calm down, man.
No, not when this motherfucker.
Explain something to you.
No, you shut up until Alpharetta comes. Go Alpharetta. heard the PD, you lied.
You find his phone?
Oh, it's right here. I don't feel any warrants. I have not read any warrants, so therefore you lied. Therefore you lied.
Listen, I'm just explaining why I'm here, okay? I didn't drive all the way to Alpharetta from East Point, not even on my shift, for no reason, okay? All right, you can keep on with all the attitude you want, okay? You told me you were nowhere near East Point the night of the murder, okay? I've got you on video at the murder scene, okay? I got you on
If you say
your
so, I
cell
would love
tower,
to see it.
okay? Your cell phone was hitting the cell tower at the murder location, okay? That's why I'm here.
While we were waiting on the tow truck to come and tow the vehicle, you could see that the running light on the left side of the car, the driver's side, was out, which matched the video that we had. Parking light working, driver's side not.
Smoking freaking gun.
I felt like I had found the bad guy that night. I've got everything in this case that I need.
You're my shooter.
If you want to clearly see,
listen. You're my shooter.
If you want to clearly hold that up so I can see it.
And you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life. Just want to let you know that. That's happening. It's
Clearly
happening.
hold that up so I can see.
It's happening. Just so you know, the gig's
I
up.
can see.
Is it okay to talk about what's going on?
I don't know anything. I'm just straightforward. I don't know what the situation. I do not feel comfortable speaking about that without a lawyer because I don't know anything.
All right, fair enough. When Adrian requested a lawyer, it wasn't frustrating to me.
All right, you come this way.
Yes, sir.
At this point in the investigation, I know what happened, start to finish. We had a really great case, and we were going to bring closure to this because we had so much evidence. We drove straight to Club Onyx and met with Atlanta Police Department's fugitive squad, and we decided to wait until the club closed to make the arrest, knowing that this was a gun crime. The fugitive squad moved in and were able to make an arrest of Mr. Pugh at the DJ booth without incident. When Andre was taken to the station, he had been Mirandized and he talked while he was in the car. Okay, you're under arrest for murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and party to the crime of burglary.
I'm gonna go kill my wife and leave me the house. And she's giving me child support. Make sense out of that.
All I can make sense out of, Andre, is the evidence. That's what I can make sense out of.
What evidence?
You planned to have your wife murdered, okay? I'm gonna prove to a jury of 12 people that that's what you set up. I'm going to prove it through your records, I'm going to prove it through testimony from others, and I'm going to prove it from the person that actually shot your wife and killed her. On the way to the interview room with Andre, he blurted out that Adrian had killed Tiffany before I was even able to get a chance to record that interaction. Okay, say that again. He came up to Club Onyx.
Right, to work.
And did what now?
Well, he came in the booth, he hugged me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, listen, I killed your wife. And I said, what the are you talking about? Are you insane? You killed my wife.
Did you ask him why he killed your wife?
Now, Adrian has a real bad temper.
Mm-hmm.
When me and my wife got into it, back in January, she accused Adrian of stealing some money from her.
Mm-hmm.
And he got pissed off about that, and he told me, he's like, man, I'm gonna do something to her. And I was like, man, chill, that's my wife. It's not that serious. If you need money, I'll give you money. But you don't have to do nothing to her. Then he just left it at that. I thought everything was good.
And again, did he tell you why he killed your wife?
He didn't say. He said something about he was pissed off from back then. And I told him back then, chill.
You didn't think to punch him or?
I mean, I said, what the are you talking about? I'm in shock. You come to me and we supposed to be best friends.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, knowing each other forever. I'm like, you said what? And I was just dumbfounded.
Your reaction, if someone came and confessed that they killed your wife, would not be, oh, why'd you do that? That's just not, to me, a natural response. He didn't call the police, and he kept DJing. And so when I heard this so-called news story, I knew it was a lie.
We wanted to nail him down on his timeline for his whereabouts on the night of the murder. I want Mr. Pugh to keep talking to me, because the more someone talks, the more they end up incriminating themselves if they're involved in a crime. Okay, you're telling me you had nothing to do with it. Okay, you're a grown man. I would love for you to tell me your side of the story, man to man, what happened from start to finish.
I'm trying to clear my name, Detective Glover. So whatever to do to clear my name and get back with my kids and my family, right. I'm willing to help you.
Okay, we could start from the beginning.
Okay, so get to the club. Work is normal. Adrian Harley shows up. He usually gets to the club about 10:30 p.m. Not sure if it was 11:30 or 12:30, but he said, yo, my stomach is hurting. I need to go to the bathroom. I'm gonna leave for a little bit. I said, fine, I'll hold it down. So he leaves, and he's gone for probably about maybe 2 hours or so. I think I texted him, yo, you know, where you at? What's good? Replied back, you know, still in the bathroom. So I said, okay, fine. Kept on working. I didn't see him again until about maybe 4 o'clock, 4:45. I think I walked out the club right around 5 a.m. I noticed that I had a voicemail from an 800 number. It was the ADT.
Okay, ADT told you on the phone that there was a dining room alarm.
Correct.
Then you called, according to your call records, Tiffany one time, and then Cliff. And according to Cliff, you told Cliff that your house had been broken into.
Right.
And they came in through the basement.
Right.
How is it you knew that? You have not been to your home yet.
Because in my dining room, nobody would go through there.
Why would they not go through there?
Because I have 2 big bright lights right there. Only thing I could think of was the basement window.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if I even told Cliff they came through the basement.
Cliff was pretty clear. He already knew that Adrian came in through the basement, but they weren't expecting the alarm to go off. And when it did, it short-circuited everything. It makes it very clear for a jury of 12 that he's lying. Okay. When I interviewed you that morning,
right,
I asked you for your phone.
Right.
Okay, I said, do you have any other phones where I can reach you?
Right.
And you said?
No.
No.
Right.
Okay. When all this time, you had the phone, the 740 number?
No, I did not have that all this time.
Okay, you didn't?
No, I had sold that on the 8th.
Okay, Mr. Jackson, Tiffany's father,
okay,
said that he texts you back and forth on that phone regularly.
No, that's not true, because he didn't even know that number. Because that number was just given to Adrian.
Okay. Mr. Jackson called us,
right,
and said he has 2 phones, and he specifically gave us that phone number. No. He's lying. Text messages to and from Mr. Jackson prove that this is a lie. But the interviews were very, very important, though, because I can show the jury the lies. All the text messages from the day of the murder, that time frame around there, have been deleted from your phone.
And that's what I don't understand or know how or know why.
Is your phone a conspirator? Did your phone say, I want to try and get my boss who owns me in trouble, and delete your text messages and then put your phone in? Why
would I delete my text messages?
Because you set up your wife to be murdered and you don't want the detectives who are about to talk to you to find them.
You could have found them because there was nothing in there saying kill my wife. I did not.
Then why delete them?
I didn't delete them. That's the crazy part.
At this point, I'm trying to poke the bear. Like, look, man, I mean, none of your lies have panned out. And we decided to show him his cell phone records at the time of the murder to incite panic, and then maybe he'd tell me some real truth. Okay. See right here?
Okay.
If you're in your subdivision, you're hitting on this tower. You were in your neighborhood when you called ADT. Let me finish. When you finished the call with ADT, you were near Camp Creek at 285.
When I finished the call.
When you started the call to ADT, you were in your neighborhood.
So I leave my subdivision to drive to 285 to come back. Don't make sense.
But no. Yes, it does make sense. This is how it makes sense. All right, you ready? This is where it makes sense. Because there's 2 cars in the cul-de-sac before the robbery. Okay? 2 cars. One person is Adrian's car, because I've already got it on video. The second car is your car, because I got it on video. And Adrian goes in, kills your wife, and then guess what? Oh, the alarm went off. Crap! I planned this murder. I planned to kill my wife. It was all set up perfect. Guess what I do? I call ADT, and I've got to get the hell out of the neighborhood because my alarm's going off. So I hustle up to Camp Creek at 285, tell them I'm 15 minutes away so that I can be away from my house and turn around and come back. Okay? That's how, when you called ADT, you were in this area where your house is. And when you finished the call to ADT, you were at Camp Creek at 285.
That's not
Tell me.
That's not true.
Okay. I mean, that's your cell records, man. It's not my cell records. That's yours. That's yours.
I did not drive over there because I was not in the cul-de-sac.
Okay, why does your neighbor's video show your car in the cul-de-sac?
No, it does not show my car.
It not only shows your car in the cul-de-sac, it shows your cell phone in the cul-de-sac. That's what I'm getting. I can't get it right.
And I can't understand that. My cell phone was not in there because I was not over there.
That's not according to your cell records. And because of your cell records, and because of what you've said, because of what you keep telling me that doesn't add up, is why you have this. This is an arrest warrant. I'm telling him he had his wife killed. He's not even mad at me. I mean, that body language is huge. I think he's finally realized he's defeated. He lost. Last night, when I came to your house,
I was not nowhere near that man when he entered.
You're just saying you're gonna agree to disagree. Is it not weird to you that the people that broke into your house knew to miss every camera?
The crazy part is the person that broke into my house, as he told me, he's the one that shot my wife. He knows my camera system.
Who, Adrian?
He told me he was over there. He told me that.
Yeah. Y'all are both hitting the same sector of the same cell site in the same subdivision.
I wasn't there.
Andre, the truth is the truth is the truth is the truth. There's nothing left for me to get. I have all of the evidence. I can show the jury he is a compulsive liar. It comes so easily to him, it rolls off his tongue. And he's going to have to pay the price now.
Murder for hire. That's what police say a husband, Andre Pugh, also known as DJ Awesome of Club Onyx, and a hitman, Adrian Harley, carried out within this home as his wife wanted to leave him. They say the two men staged it to look like a burglary, but police say Pugh's account to police did not add up.
Mr. Pugh can't keep his story straight. He can't remember one lie from the next.
I asked him, what do you mean you saw a body? He said, she always wakes up when I call her name, always. I said, did you see any blood on her? No. Did you see she had been shot? No.
Both his lies, the lies of Adrian, coupled with the cell phone records, the surveillance video, all of that is what helped us prove that these are the two individuals responsible for this crime.
How could you destroy yourself and your family? How could you do that? But knowing that we got a conviction in both cases, I feel that as much as justice can be served, it's been served.
Their actions were evil, and now two children are left without parents. It's beyond tragic. You can never bring Tiffany back, unfortunately, but what I hope and I pray is that this chapter can be closed.
This was a true victim that had her whole life ahead of her. We were not going to let this case go without solving it, and I'll never forget it.
I just miss her spirit. I remember those days of going to visit her. I think about her all the time, full of life.
I miss talking to her on the phone. We did that every Sunday to stay close. Tiffany, I love you and I miss you very much. I wish you were here.
The desert highway is empty, a black ribbon cutting through Arizona's sleeping earth, and the only movement comes from a pair of red and blue lights igniting the darkness like a warning flare. For a split second there is silence, then the siren flicks on, sharp and mechanical, a sound so ordinary it barely registers as danger. A routine traffic stop. The kind that happens 1,000 times a night across America. The kind that never makes the news. The kind no one remembers. And yet, in this moment on this stretch of road, something long buried begins to stir. Because some crimes do not disappear. They wait, patient and cold, hiding behind the illusion of normalcy until chance cracks them open. Arizona has always been good at swallowing secrets. In 2001, the state felt even larger, more isolated. Its towns separated by long distances and longer silences. Heat pressed down on everything, warping time, blurring days together, turning routine into habit and habit into blind spots. People trusted the familiar. They trusted roads they drove every day. They trusted that if something went wrong, someone would notice. But the desert does not care about trust. It erases footprints before morning and teaches absence how to blend in. That spring, a woman vanished without drama, without witnesses, without a single moment that screamed danger. No shattered glass. No frantic phone call. No struggle caught on camera. She left her home like she always did, plans modest, expectations ordinary, and by nightfall she was gone. First it felt impossible. People don't just disappear, not people like her. She was reliable, predictable, the kind of person whose life ran on quiet routines. She checked in. She showed up. She didn't drift. So when her phone rang unanswered, when her car failed to return, the unease crept in slowly, like a stain spreading under the surface. Friends called hospitals. Family drove familiar routes, eyes scanning shoulders and ditches, convinced she would be standing there, confused, waiting. Police took the report with practiced calm, noting the time, the clothing, the last known location, filing it under missing, not yet understanding how permanent that word might become. In the early hours, hope was loud. People spoke in certainty. There had to be an explanation. There always is. Then the car was found. It sat under the sun like it had been placed there deliberately, not abandoned in panic but parked with care, angled slightly wrong, just enough to feel unsettling. No keys. No obvious damage. No signs of violence. Inside, everything was ordinary. Too ordinary. A vehicle without its owner becomes a question mark, and this one refused to answer. Detectives processed it inch by inch, dusting, photographing, bagging what little there was to bag, but the scene offered nothing solid. No blood to confirm a crime. No witnesses to anchor a timeline. Just an absence so clean it felt intentional. That was the moment the word cold case began its slow approach, though no one said it out loud yet. The community reacted the way communities do when fear is still fresh. Flyers appeared on telephone poles and gas station windows. Her photo stared out from black and white printouts, smiling, alive, demanding recognition. Candlelight vigils flickered against the night as neighbors gathered, promising solidarity, promising vigilance, promising they would not let this fade. Local news stations ran updates. Tips poured in. Every stranger became a potential lead. Every unfamiliar car was memorized. But days passed, then weeks, and nothing materialized. No confirmed sightings. No credible explanations. The desert remained silent. Investigators chased what they could. They mapped her last known movements. They interviewed coworkers, friends, acquaintances, anyone who might have noticed something off. They checked phone records, bank activity, traffic cameras that barely existed at the time. Each step led to a dead end, each dead end tightening the pressure. This was the worst kind of case. No body, no clear crime scene, no suspect, just a woman who stepped out of her life and never returned. As months turned into years, the case slipped into a different category. Not closed, not solved, just waiting. Files were boxed. Detectives retired or transferred. New names took over. Reading old notes, trying to hear voices from the past through faded ink. Technology improved. Databases expanded. Evidence was re-examined, but evidence without context is just noise. Leads dried up. Tips slowed. The story stopped leading the news and started living only in the quiet spaces. In the minds of family members who learned how to carry uncertainty like a weight they could never put down. Cold cases do not die. They linger. They sit in the background, unresolved, pressing lightly against the present. Every anniversary reopened the wound. Every unidentified set of remains sparked a flicker of hope followed by disappointment. The question never changed. What happened to her? And why did no one see it happen? 2 decades passed like that. Then, late one night, under a sky that had witnessed all of it and remembered none of it, a patrol officer noticed something small. A traffic violation. A light out. A signal missed. Nothing worth remembering. The officer activated the lights out of habit, muscle memory guiding the decision, unaware that this routine act was about to collide with 20 years of unanswered questions. The vehicle slowed. Pulled over. The desert hummed softly around them. The driver complied, movements controlled, face unreadable. Papers were handed over. Names were spoken. The patrol car's computer glowed in the dark, quietly doing what humans cannot, sifting through records, connecting fragments across time. And then it happened. A pause. A delay that felt heavier than it should have. A name resurfaced not as a memory but as a match. The past did not rush back. Seeped in. The officer felt it before understanding it, that shift in atmosphere when something ordinary turns wrong. The stop stretched longer than expected. Questions became more precise. Backup was requested, not with urgency but with caution. The driver's demeanor changed, tension leaking through the cracks. Somewhere in a database, a cold case stirred, its details aligning with a present moment that should never have touched it. This was how it happened, not through a confession, not through a dramatic break, but through chance, through routine, through a decision made without knowing its weight. As the desert night thickened, the traffic stop transformed into something else entirely. The name from 2001, dormant for years, now stood in the glow of flashing lights, no longer abstract, no longer buried in paper. Flesh and breath and pulse. The implications rippled outward, crossing decades in seconds. If this connection held, if this stop truly intersected with that disappearance, then everything believed about the case would have to be re-examined. Because cold cases are not just puzzles. They are open wounds sealed by time, and reopening them means confronting everything that was missed, everything that failed, everything that slipped through the cracks. It means revisiting decisions made without the benefit of hindsight. It means acknowledging that justice does not operate on a schedule. Somewhere far from the highway, a family would soon receive a call they had imagined and feared for years. Somewhere a file long untouched would be pulled from a shelf, its pages finally relevant again. Somewhere, the desert would give up a piece of its silence. The lights continued to spin, painting the night in red and blue, the colors reflecting off metal, off glass, off the surface of a story that was never meant to resurface this way. And in that moment, standing between past and present, it became clear that the case was no longer sleeping. It had been waiting for this exact intersection of time and chance, for a broken rule, a routine stop, a brief pause on an empty road. The desert had kept its secret for 20 years. Now, under the indifferent stars, it was finally being forced into the open. The patrol car idles on the shoulder, engine humming softly, and the night seems to lean closer, as if the desert itself is listening. The driver's name sits on the screen longer than it should, surrounded by quiet system alerts that never appear for ordinary people. And in that delay, the weight of the past presses forward. Dispatch asks a question twice. The officer answers carefully. This is no longer a simple stop. This is the moment when routine fractures and something older, darker, steps into the light. The name traces back through records that haven't been touched in years, flagged once, then buried under newer priorities, newer emergencies, newer victims. In 2001, it was just another entry in a growing list of persons of interest, someone interviewed, noted, released, never charged, never cleared either. Time had done what time always does. It softened suspicion. It dulled edges. It let people move on. But databases do not forget. They wait. As the officer approaches the vehicle again, the conversation shifts, subtle but unmistakable. Questions slow down. Words are chosen carefully. Where are you coming from? Where are you headed? The driver answers smoothly, too smoothly, rehearsed in a way that suggests long practice, and for a moment it feels like nothing will happen, like the night will swallow this interaction the way it swallows everything else. But the past has already been stirred, and it will not go back to sleep. Backup arrives, tires crunching softly against gravel. Two more figures step into the glow of the lights, their presence changing the balance. The driver notices. A flicker of unease crosses their face, gone almost immediately, replaced by irritation, impatience, the performance of someone inconvenienced. The officers exchange a look that says everything without words. They know this feeling. The moment when instinct collides with protocol. 20 years earlier, investigators felt something similar when this name first surfaced. Back then it was just a thread, thin and fraying, easy to lose. He had been interviewed briefly, routine questions, routine answers. He knew the area. He had crossed paths with the missing woman in ordinary ways. Nothing that screamed danger. Nothing that justified holding him longer. There was no evidence to keep him, no probable cause to dig deeper. And so he walked away, back into anonymity, carrying something no one could prove he possessed. Now he stands again under scrutiny, older, weathered by time, but unmistakably the same person. Lives have been lived in the interim. Jobs taken. Relationships formed and dissolved. Years layered over secrets like sediment, compressing them, hiding them but never erasing them. The desert does not forgive. Preserves. The officers request consent to search the vehicle. The refusal comes quickly, defensively. A flash of something raw slipping through the cracks. That is enough. Enough to slow everything down. Enough to justify a call. Enough to keep him there while wheels begin to turn far beyond this stretch of road. Somewhere, an investigator who has spent years staring at the same photograph will soon hear a name and feel the air leave their lungs. At the station, the tone is different. Fluorescent lights hum overhead. Time feels distorted, stretched thin. The driver sits alone, hands folded, eyes tracking movements, calculating. He has been here before, in other contexts, other rooms, other conversations, and he knows how this works. He knows silence can be safer than words. He knows patience is a weapon. Detectives pull the old file. Dust rises when it's opened, literal and metaphorical. Pages are yellowed. Notes are handwritten. Assumptions made with limited information stare back accusingly. They read everything again, slowly, carefully, aware that hindsight sharpens every missed opportunity. This name, this face, this proximity. Why wasn't more done? Why did it stop here? In 2001, technology was not what it is now. Cell phone records were limited. Location data was crude. Surveillance cameras were sparse. DNA testing was expensive and slow. Evidence had to be strong to justify its use. And in this case, strength was exactly what was missing. Everything hovered just below the threshold, suspicious but insufficient. A puzzle missing too many pieces to even know what the picture was supposed to be. Now those limitations are gone. The first step is comparison. Old statements against new ones. Then comes the timeline, reconstructed with modern tools, mapping movements that once seemed untraceable. Patterns emerge where chaos once reigned. A route that overlaps too neatly. A window of time that fits too well. It is not proof. Not yet. But it is structure, and structure is something this case has never had. Forensic teams revisit evidence that was once considered inconclusive. Fibers. Trace materials. Items stored for decades because no one had the heart to destroy them, even when hope was gone. Advances in science turn whispers into voices. What once meant nothing now speaks loudly, clearly, accusingly. The case breathes again, each inhale heavier than the last. Interrogation begins quietly. No accusations. No raised voices. Just conversation. The detectives know better. They let silence stretch. They let discomfort bloom. They talk about ordinary things. About life. About how time passes faster than anyone expects. They mention the year 2001 casually, as if it's just another memory, watching for reactions, for cracks, for the smallest involuntary tells. The man listens. Smiles. Nods. He has had 20 years to prepare for this moment, even if he didn't know it was coming. Outside the room, the impact ripples outward. Supervisors are notified. Cold case units are alerted. The missing woman's name appears on screens that haven't displayed it in years. People who worked the case early on are called at home, their voices tightening as they hear what has happened. For some, it feels like redemption. For others, like a reminder of failure. For all of them, it is unfinished business returning without warning. The community does not know yet. The desert remains quiet. But that will change. News travels fast once it starts moving. And when it does, it carries 20 years of grief with it. People will ask how this could take so long. Why now? Why him? Why a traffic stop? The answers will be unsatisfying. Because the truth is not dramatic. It is procedural. It is mundane. It is built on coincidence and persistence and the slow accumulation of data. The suspect asks for a lawyer. The room stills. This is expected. This is not the end. It is the beginning of a different phase, one where every step must be precise, every claim supported, every assumption tested. Arrest does not equal justice. Not yet, especially not in a case this old. As the night deepens, the weight of what might come settles in. If charges are filed, the story will finally have a center. If they are not, the case risks collapsing under the weight of expectation. Cold cases are fragile things. They can be revived, but they can also be damaged beyond repair by haste. Somewhere in a quiet house, a phone rings. A voice on the other end hesitates before speaking. A name is said out loud for the first time in years, followed by words that feel unreal even as they are spoken. We may have something. We may finally have something. The desert does not respond. It never does. It simply watches, patient as always, as humans try once again to impose meaning on silence, to pull truth from shadows, to decide whether this routine stop will become the moment a 20-year mystery finally breaks open, or just another near miss added to a long list of what-ifs. The night continues. The lights keep spinning. And somewhere between past and present, the case edges closer to an answer it has waited decades to hear. Morning arrives without ceremony. The desert does not change its expression for revelations or reckonings. Sunlight spills across the station parking lot, bleaching the night from the pavement, and inside, The case file lies open like a wound exposed to air. Coffee goes cold. Phones vibrate. Screens glow with timelines that once led nowhere and now seem to point, insistently, toward a single direction. The suspect remains in custody, quiet, composed, aware that every minute buys him distance while simultaneously tightening the net around him. Detectives begin where the past was weakest. The timeline. In 2001 it was a fog stitched together from approximations and assumptions. Now it becomes a grid. Cell tower pings, once dismissed as too broad to be useful, are reanalyzed with modern software, plotted against roads, against stops, against the places where desert gives way to scrub and scrub gives way to nothing. Patterns surface not like revelations but like confirmations, as if the land itself is nodding along, saying yes, this makes sense, this is where it always led. They revisit the day she vanished, hour by hour, minute by minute, scrubbing it clean of speculation and rebuilding it with data. She leaves home. She drives a familiar route. She makes a stop that seems unimportant, a detail overlooked because it felt too ordinary to matter. But ordinary things matter now. Ordinary things become anchors. Receipts are pulled. Bank records resurface. A transaction timestamped within a narrow window tightens the frame. She was here. Then she wasn't. The suspect's movements align too neatly to ignore. Not perfectly. Nothing ever does. But close enough to raise questions that cannot be waved away. He was in the area. He had no reason to be there, at least none he can articulate convincingly. His alibi from 20 years ago was thin then and is non-existent now, eroded by time, by changed stories, by witnesses who can no longer remember details or are no longer alive to be asked. Interviews begin again. Resurrecting people who thought they had closed this chapter of their lives. Former coworkers, neighbors, acquaintances who remember fragments, impressions, unease without context.
À comment ir?
A look there. At the time, none of it rose to the level of alarm. Now, assembled together, it hums with implication. Someone remembers seeing him near her car. Someone remembers a conversation that felt strange in retrospect. Someone remembers nothing at all. And that absence feels just as loud. Forensic labs receive evidence that has slept in boxes for 2 decades. Items once labeled inconclusive are unsealed under sterile light. Fibers are teased apart. Trace materials are examined with tools that did not exist when the case was young. DNA analysis, once a luxury, now a standard, pulls meaning from microscopic remnants. Results take time, but anticipation fills the gap. A quiet electric tension that turns every ring of the phone into a potential earthquake. The interrogation resumes in short bursts. The suspect is older now, slower in some ways, sharper in others. He knows the law. He knows his rights. He answers selectively, carefully, sometimes too carefully, as if each word is weighed against a private ledger. Detectives do not push. They circle. They repeat questions phrased slightly differently, testing consistency, watching for fatigue. Time is their ally. It always has been. He insists on innocence with a calm that borders on indifference. He speaks of 2001 as if it were another lifetime, distant and irrelevant. He claims he barely knew her, barely remembered her, barely remembered that year at all. Memory is a convenient shield. But memory can be interrogated too. Old statements are read back to him, his own words echoing in the room, familiar yet uncomfortable. He shifts. He adjusts. Small tells, easily dismissed alone, begin to stack. Outside the room, prosecutors are briefed. They listen without emotion, trained to see not truth but viability. Can this hold up in court? Can a jury be convinced after 20 years of silence? They know the dangers. Memories fade. Evidence degrades. Defense attorneys feast on doubt. A cold case arrest is a promise, not a guarantee, and the burden is heavier because of the years that have passed. The media catches wind. It always does. A routine traffic stop leading to an arrest in a decades-old disappearance is irresistible. Headlines bloom, resurrecting the case in public consciousness with brutal efficiency. Her photograph appears again, now paired with the word breakthrough. Hope surges where resignation once lived. Families who stopped watching the news start watching again. Strangers argue online about guilt and coincidence, about justice delayed and justice denied. Detectives feel the pressure immediately. The clock accelerates. Every move is scrutinized. Every leak magnified. They work longer hours, fueled by urgency and the quiet dread of getting it wrong. Because getting it wrong now would not just reopen wounds. It would salt them. They return to the desert. Search teams fan out over areas once considered too vast, too unforgiving to comb effectively. Technology guides them now, narrowing focus to places where probability outweighs hope. Cadaver dogs move with purpose, noses low, tails stiff, reading the ground like a language humans cannot speak. The desert resists as it always does, but it has limits. It cannot hide everything forever. Hours stretch into days. Then a pause. A subtle change in behavior. A dog alerts. Not dramatically, just enough to draw attention. The ground is disturbed, barely perceptible, something a casual eye would miss entirely. Shovels bite into earth hardened by years of sun and neglect. Each scoop is measured, documented, reverent. No one speaks more than necessary. What they find is not clarity, not closure. It is suggestion. Fragments. Evidence of disturbance consistent with human activity, time-worn, ambiguous. Enough to justify further excavation. Enough to keep hope alive and fear alongside it. The desert gives nothing freely. It demands patience and humility. Back at the station, lab results begin to return. Partial matches. Probabilities. Language that is cautious by design. Science does not shout. It whispers, and detectives lean in, straining to hear. The pieces begin to edge closer together, not locking into place, but aligning in a way that feels intentional rather than coincidental. The suspect is informed of the search. His reaction is minimal. A flicker of annoyance. A tightening of the jaw. He asks what they think they'll find. The question hangs in the air longer than it should. Detectives make note of it. Everything is noted now. For the family, the waiting is unbearable. Hope has a sharper edge when it returns unexpectedly. They replay the past in their minds, rewriting moments, wondering what they missed, what they misunderstood. They brace themselves for news that could heal or shatter, knowing that either outcome will change everything. Cold cases are not solved in explosions. They unravel slowly, thread by thread. The truth emerging not as a revelation but as an accumulation. This one is no different. Each development tightens the circle, reducing the space where doubt can hide. But doubt is resilient. It clings to every gap, every unanswered question, every year that slipped by without accountability. As night falls again over Arizona, the investigation presses forward, propelled by momentum it has not felt in 20 years. The desert cools. The lights in the station burn on. Somewhere between the evidence locker and the interrogation room, between memory and proof, the case inches closer to something it has never had before. A shape. And once a shape exists, it can no longer be ignored. The desert exhales at night, heat lifting from the ground like a held breath finally released. And under that cooling sky the investigation tightens, methodical, relentless, no longer driven by speculation but by gravity. The kind of gravity that pulls everything inward. The kind that makes coincidence feel impossible. Inside the station, maps cover the walls, lines drawn and redrawn, routes intersecting like veins, all of them converging on moments that were once invisible and now feel unavoidable. Detectives begin to reconstruct not just what happened, but how it could have happened without anyone noticing. That question sits at the center of everything. How does a person vanish in daylight, leave behind a car, leave behind a life, and generate so little noise that the world keeps turning without interruption? The answer slowly, painfully, is opportunity. Not chaos. Not violence in the open. Opportunity wrapped in normalcy, disguised as routine, hiding in plain sight. They revisit her final known interactions, not as isolated events but as a sequence. A stop that seemed insignificant. A brief conversation. A moment where paths crossed in a way that felt forgettable to everyone except the person who recognized its potential. The suspect's history comes into sharper focus now. Patterns emerging where once there were just anecdotes. A tendency toward control. A history of proximity without intimacy. A comfort with boundaries that could be tested without immediately breaking. In 2001, those details were scattered, dismissed as personality quirks, contextual noise. Now they line up, forming a psychological contour that feels uncomfortably precise. Behavioral analysts weigh in, careful not to overreach, but unable to ignore the consistency. This was not random. This was not impulsive. This was someone who understood timing, isolation, and the value of silence. The search area expands, guided by probability models that reduce vastness into manageable zones. Drones sweep overhead, their quiet presence mapping terrain that once defeated human eyes. Ground teams follow step by step, marking disturbances, cataloging anomalies. Each finding is logged, photographed, preserved, treated as if it could be the one thing that tips the scale. Most of it isn't. But the process matters. The discipline matters. Cold cases fail when desperation replaces precision. At the lab, specialists work through the night. Samples pulled from storage are processed alongside new material recovered from the search. Cross-referencing databases that didn't exist when the evidence was first collected yields connections that feel almost unfair, like retroactive justice applied with modern tools. Partial DNA profiles don't scream answers, but they narrow the field, shaving away possibilities until only a few remain standing. The suspect is brought back into the interview room. This time the tone shifts slightly. Still calm, still controlled, but heavier. The detectives lay out fragments, not accusations, letting the weight of accumulation do the work. They talk about the search, about technology, about how things change, how time doesn't erase evidence, it just waits for the right moment to be understood. They watch his face carefully, the way muscles tighten when they mention certain locations, certain dates. He pushes back, measured, almost offended by the implication that the past could reach him now. He speaks of fairness, of how long it's been, of memories being unreliable. The argument is old. Time is a shield. But time cuts both ways. It dulls fear. It breeds overconfidence. It convinces people that what wasn't proven once can never be proven at all. Outside the room, detectives listen through glass, hearing not just what is said but what is avoided. He never asks about her, never uses her name unless prompted, never expresses curiosity about what became of her. Absence speaks, sometimes louder than confession. The media presence grows. Satellite trucks line the street. Reporters speculate, dissecting every leak, every anonymous quote. The phrase "cold case cracked" begins to circulate, premature and dangerous. Investigators bristle at it. Nothing is cracked yet. Pressure like this has shattered cases before, forced mistakes, created openings for defense attorneys who thrive on procedural missteps. Prosecutors caution patience. They want more. They need more. Circumstantial evidence can build a story, but courtrooms demand structure. They demand clarity. They demand a narrative that survives attack. The desert search must produce something tangible. The forensic results must converge. The suspect must be tied not just emotionally or logically, but physically, undeniably, to the disappearance. Days pass. The rhythm of the investigation settles into something almost ritualistic. Search, analyze, interview, review, repeat. Fatigue sets in, but so does focus. Everyone involved knows the stakes. This is not just about solving a case. It is about correcting history, about proving that time does not equal immunity. Then, during a secondary excavation in an area previously flagged but deprioritized years ago, the ground tells a different story. Subtle at first. Soil composition inconsistent with natural layering. A disturbance pattern that suggests deliberate movement rather than erosion. The team slows, hearts pounding in their ears, aware that this is the threshold they have both feared and sought. Careful excavation reveals fragments. Not enough to announce. Not enough to identify. But enough to stop dismissing the site as empty. Evidence markers dot the ground like punctuation, each one turning silence into language. The desert has finally yielded something that cannot be ignored. The call goes out. Specialists arrive. The process becomes almost ceremonial. Photographs. Measurements. Documentation so meticulous it borders on reverent. No one speaks above a whisper. No one speculates. This is where mistakes live. This is where restraint matters most. Word reaches the station. The suspect is informed indirectly, deliberately, watching for reaction. This time the mask slips for a fraction of a second. A swallow. A tightening of the lips. Anger flashes, then disappears. It is subtle. It is brief. It is enough. Family members are notified that developments have occurred. Though details are withheld, the emotional whiplash is immediate. Hope surges alongside dread. Confirmation, when it comes, will be absolute. There will be no more wondering, only knowing. Forensic analysis accelerates. Comparisons are made. Probabilities refined. Experts speak in careful language, but their eyes reveal what words cannot yet confirm. The pieces are converging. The shape glimpsed earlier is gaining definition. The suspect, sensing momentum shifting, becomes more guarded. He speaks less, consults his attorney more. The easy confidence erodes, replaced by calculation sharpened by urgency. Time, once his ally, is no longer neutral. It is closing in. Cold cases do not end quietly. They build pressure until something gives. In this one, the pressure is reaching a point of no return. The desert has given up its silence. Science has narrowed its uncertainty. Human behavior has revealed its cracks. As another night falls over Arizona, the investigation stands at a precipice. On one side, decades of unanswered questions. On the other, a truth that has waited far too long to surface. The space between them is shrinking, and soon, very soon, something will have to give. The evidence does not announce itself with certainty. It never does. It arrives in fragments, in margins, in numbers followed by cautious language, and yet its presence changes everything. The lab report lands on the desk with the quiet weight of inevitability. Pages clipped together. The ink still warm from the printer. No conclusions printed in bold. No dramatic declarations. Just probability, consistency, and alignment where there once was only absence. The remains recovered from the desert site are limited, degraded by time and environment, but not erased. Bone fragments tell a story of exposure and concealment. Soil analysis confirms the ground was disturbed by human hands, not natural forces. The placement suggests intention, not accident. The timeline, refined by decomposition markers and environmental data, fits within the window investigators have been circling for weeks. This is not coincidence. This is convergence. DNA results follow, partial but persuasive. Mitochondrial markers align with maternal relatives. The language is careful, conservative, but the implication is devastating. After 20 years of not knowing, the question of where she went begins to collapse into a different, heavier reality. The missing is becoming the dead. Detectives sit with the information longer than they need to, understanding the weight of what it means beyond the investigation. Closure is a word often used casually, but nothing about this feels closed. Feels raw. It feels unfinished. It feels like a door opening into a room no one has entered in decades, dust swirling, memories rushing in. The next step is unavoidable. The suspect must be confronted not with suggestion, but with substance. He enters the interview room again, posture stiff, expression guarded. The tone is no longer conversational. Still calm, still controlled, but direct. The detectives place selected facts on the table, one by one, not as accusations but as realities. The desert site, the disturbance, the forensic indicators. They watch his face as each piece lands, as the distance between him and the past shrinks. He listens without interruption. When he speaks, it is to challenge, to question methodology, to cast doubt on interpretation. He points out the age of the evidence, the risk of contamination, the fallibility of memory. He is not wrong in theory. Cold cases are vulnerable precisely because of time. But theory falters when too many independent lines point in the same direction. They show him his old statements, then his newer ones. Side by side, discrepancies appear, subtle but undeniable. Locations shift. Times blur. Details emerge now that were absent before. As if invented to fill gaps he suddenly realizes exist. The detectives do not comment. They let the contradictions speak for themselves. Silence stretches. The room hums softly. Fluorescent lights buzz. Outside, the world moves on, unaware that a decades-old truth is being cornered. Inside, the suspect's composure thins. He shifts in his chair. His jaw tightens. He asks for a break. It is granted. He knows the rules. He knows when to pause. Prosecutors review the case again, this time with renewed gravity. The elements are aligning into something they can work with. Not a perfect case. Not an easy one. but viable. They debate strategy, aware that every decision will be dissected in court. Do they move now, or wait for further confirmation? Do they risk delay in pursuit of certainty, or act before momentum fades? The family is informed of the forensic developments. The call is careful, measured, delivered by someone trained to carry bad news without breaking under it. There are no screams, no dramatics, just quiet devastation, the kind that settles deep and stays. Grief delayed is not diminished. It is sharpened. The community reacts in waves. Shock, relief, anger, disbelief. Some are grateful for answers. Others are haunted by how close this may have been all along. Conversations resurface, memories reinterpreted, casual encounters replayed under a new light. The past rewrites itself in real time. Media coverage intensifies. The story is no longer just about a traffic stop. It is about accountability, about how someone could live freely for 20 years while a family waited in limbo. Headlines sharpen. Opinions harden. The narrative solidifies faster than investigators would like, turning suspicion into assumed guilt long before a courtroom ever sees the case. Detectives resist the noise. They focus inward, tightening the structure, shoring up weak points. They know the defense will attack everything. Chain of custody, witness reliability, evidence integrity. They prepare accordingly, documenting every step, anticipating every challenge. Cold cases do not forgive sloppiness. They return to the suspect one final time before making a decision. This time they speak plainly. The desert has given up remains. The lab has confirmed a familial link. His proximity, his history, his shifting narrative all point to one conclusion. They ask him to explain the unexplainable. For the first time, he does not answer immediately. The silence is different now. Heavy. Charged. He stares at the table, at his own hands, as if seeing them differently. When he speaks, his voice is lower, strained. He does not confess. He does not deny outright either. He offers alternatives. Hypotheticals. Possibilities that stretch logic thin. It is a performance born of desperation, not confidence. The detectives end the interview without resolution. They do not need one. They have enough. Charges are drafted carefully. Language precise. No embellishment. No assumptions. Just facts supported by evidence, presented in a way that can survive scrutiny. The decision to arrest is not celebrated. It is acknowledged. A necessary step, not a victory. The arrest comes quietly. No spectacle. No handcuffs paraded for cameras. Just procedure. Just accountability finally catching up. The suspect is booked, fingerprinted, photographed. His name now officially attached to the case that has haunted this community for 2 decades. As the cell door closes, the weight of time presses in. 20 years of freedom. 20 years of silence. 20 years of a family waiting for something, anything, to explain why their lives stopped while everyone else's continued. The desert remains unchanged. The road where the traffic stop occurred looks the same as it always has. But something fundamental has shifted. A story once defined by absence now has a center. A missing person case has become a homicide investigation with a suspect, with evidence, with a path forward. Justice is not guaranteed. Trials are unpredictable. Verdicts are uncertain. But the waiting, the endless, directionless waiting has ended. And in its place stands something heavier, more terrifying and more real. The truth is finally demanding to be heard. The courtroom does not feel like a place for ghosts, yet ghosts fill it anyway. They sit in the empty chairs, hover in the corners, cling to every whispered conversation as the case moves from investigation to prosecution. The defendant is brought in quietly, no defiant stare, no dramatic gestures, just the controlled stillness of someone who understands that this is no longer a place where charm or silence can protect him. Across the room, the family sits together, older now, marked by years of unanswered questions, their faces carrying a grief that never learned how to rest. The charges are read aloud in language stripped of emotion, precise and cold, and with each word the past becomes official. What once lived in rumors and memories now exists in the legal record, immutable and public. The case that slept for 20 years has a docket number, a judge, a schedule. Time once suspended is moving again. Prosecutors lay out their framework carefully. They do not promise spectacle. They promise coherence. They describe a disappearance that defied explanation until technology and persistence converged. They outline a timeline that narrows possibility into probability. They emphasize behavior, opportunity, and the accumulation of evidence rather than any single smoking gun. Cold cases rarely offer those. Instead, they offer patterns that refuse to be ignored. The defense counters with familiar arguments. They speak of delay, of degraded evidence, of memories shaped by media and hindsight. They remind the court that suspicion is not proof and that coincidence, however unsettling, is not a crime. They point to the decades the defendant lived openly, without incident, without further accusation, and ask whether a guilty man could truly hide in plain sight for so long. The judge listens without reaction. This is not a place for outrage. It is a place for balance. Pretrial motions stretch on. Evidence is challenged. Experts are vetted. Chain of custody becomes a battleground. Every hand that touched every item scrutinized for weakness. Prosecutors respond methodically, aware that the smallest procedural error could unravel everything. The age of the case cuts both ways. What it lacks in immediacy, it gains in perspective. Outside the courthouse, public opinion churns. Some see justice finally catching up. Others worry about the danger of convicting on old evidence. The story becomes a debate about time itself. Does justice expire? Does memory rot beyond usefulness? Or does truth simply wait for the right moment to surface? Witnesses are located and prepared. Many reluctant, some afraid, all aware that revisiting the past will cost them something. One remembers a conversation that once felt insignificant. Another recalls a vehicle parked where it shouldn't have been. Each testimony is small on its own, but together they build texture, context, a world where the defendant's presence feels less accidental and more deliberate. Forensic experts take the stand, speaking in measured tones about probabilities and exclusions, about what science can say and what it cannot. They avoid absolutes. They explain methodology, margins of error, the limits imposed by time and environment. The defense presses hard, highlighting every uncertainty, every assumption, every place where interpretation is required. This is where cold cases live or die, in the space between confidence and doubt. The remains recovered from the desert are addressed with care. Photographs are shown sparingly. Language is clinical. The human reality behind the evidence is never far from the surface, but it is restrained, contained, transformed into data because that is what the system demands. The identification is not absolute, but the familial link is strong enough to be compelling. Strong enough to matter. The defendant watches without expression. When he does react, it is to details, not emotions, locations, dates, timelines. He is attentive in a way that suggests personal investment rather than abstract concern. The jury notices. Everyone notices. As days turn into weeks, the narrative solidifies. Not as a single dramatic act, but as a series of decisions, each one reasonable on its own, each one leading inexorably to the same outcome. Opportunity meets intent. Silence follows. Life goes on. This is not a story of passion. It is a story of calculation. The defense offers its alternative explanation, fragmented but persistent. They suggest other possibilities, other actors, the desert as an equal opportunity eraser. They imply investigative tunnel vision, the danger of retrofitting evidence to fit a suspect identified by chance. They remind the jury that the arrest began with a traffic stop, an accident of fate, and ask whether coincidence is being mistaken for causation. Prosecutors respond by reframing coincidence as catalyst, not cause. The stop did not create the evidence. It revealed it. The truth existed long before flashing lights illuminated it. The jury is asked to consider not how the case was reopened, but what the evidence shows now. The family listens to every word, absorbing pain in controlled doses. They do not seek vengeance. They seek acknowledgement, a recognition that what happened mattered, that her life mattered, that her disappearance was not just a mystery but a harm that echoed outward for decades. Closing arguments approach with the weight of finality. Both sides know the risks. Cold cases ask juries to bridge time, to imagine a world without digital footprints, to trust science that speaks in percentages rather than certainties. It is a difficult ask. but so is ignoring a pattern that aligns too closely to dismiss. The jury retires to deliberate. The room empties. The waiting begins again, though this time it is different. There is direction now. An end one way or another. The family holds hands. The defendant sits alone, eyes forward, breathing steady, perhaps still believing that time will save him one last time. Hours stretch. Then days. The verdict, when it comes, will not restore what was lost. Nothing can. But it will define how the story is remembered. Whether the decades of silence were a shield or merely an illusion. Outside, the desert endures, indifferent as always. It has given what it will give. The rest belongs to people now, to jurors weighing doubt against accumulation, to a system attempting to reach back across 20 years and decide what justice looks like when it finally arrives. Deliberations are quiet, almost disappointingly so. No raised voices. No slammed fists. Just 12 people seated around a table, folders open, notes spread out, each of them carrying the same burden from different angles. Time presses in on them not as urgency but as history. 20 years of absence condensed into binders and exhibits. The question is not whether something happened. The question is whether what happened can be proven beyond reasonable doubt. They start where everyone starts. The timeline. They trace it forward, then backward, then sideways, testing it for weakness. Where she was last seen. Where her car was found. Where the defendant was or said he was. They mark the overlaps. The gaps. The moments where coincidence feels strained. They talk about memory, how unreliable it can be. How witnesses filled in blanks without realizing it. Then they talk about patterns, how patterns persist even when individual details blur. One juror fixates on the traffic stop. The randomness of it. The idea that without that broken light, none of this would exist. Another juror pushes back. Randomness did not create the evidence, they argue. It merely uncovered it. The evidence was always there, waiting. That distinction matters. They sit with it. They examine the forensic testimony again. DNA. Probabilities. What partial matches mean and what they don't. They acknowledge the limits. No absolute identification. No pristine crime scene. But they also acknowledge the convergence. The odds stacking. The way independent findings reinforce each other. Science, they remind themselves, rarely speaks in absolutes. It speaks in likelihoods that accumulate until doubt has nowhere left to stand. They talk about the defendant's behavior. Not as proof but as context. His shifting statements. His selective memory. His reactions when certain locations were mentioned. One juror hesitates, cautious of reading too much into demeanor. Another counters that behavior does not convict, but it can corroborate. Together they weigh it carefully, aware of the line they cannot cross. The desert becomes a topic. Its vastness. Its indifference. How easy it would be to hide something there. How hard it would be to find anything without guidance. The fact that the search location was not random but derived from analysis, from probability, from narrowed focus. That matters too. Hours pass. Coffee cups are refilled. Voices grow tired but steadier. They begin to see the case not as fragments but as a single arc. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Methodical. Ordinary. That ordinariness unsettles them more than any sensational detail. Crimes like this do not announce themselves. They blend in. The vote is taken quietly. Slips of paper folded, passed, unfolded. The count is close enough to force more discussion, but not close enough to fracture the room. Doubts are voiced. Addressed. Not eliminated but contextualized. Reasonable doubt, they remind themselves, is not imaginary doubt. It must be grounded. It must have weight. Eventually, there is nothing left to say that hasn't already been said. The decision settles, heavy and irrevocable. They notify the court. Inside the courtroom, everyone feels it before hearing it. The subtle shift. The tightening of shoulders. The way breath is held collectively. The defendant stands, face composed, eyes fixed ahead. The family braces, hands gripping each other, prepared for either outcome, knowing that neither will feel like relief. The verdict is read aloud. The words land without drama, but their impact is seismic. Guilty. A sound escapes somewhere in the room, not quite a sob, not quite a gasp. The family closes in on itself, grief and validation colliding in ways they never imagined. This is not the end of pain. It is the end of uncertainty. That distinction matters more than anyone outside the room can understand. The defendant remains still. No outburst. No collapse. Just a slow exhale, as if something he has carried for years has finally found its weight. He blinks. Swallows. The mask holds but barely. Sentencing is scheduled for a later date. The process demands patience even now. Justice moves deliberately, even when the waiting feels cruel. The court adjourns. The room empties. Outside, cameras wait, microphones thrust forward, eager to translate complex human experience into sound bites. The family does not stop. They walk past, faces set, unwilling to let this moment be consumed by noise. In the days that follow, analysis floods the airwaves. Legal experts debate the strength of the case. Cold case advocates call it a victory for persistence and technology. Skeptics warn of precedent, of the dangers inherent in relying on old evidence. Both are right in their own ways. Truth is rarely simple. The defendant returns to a cell, this time with finality. Appeals will come. They always do. But something fundamental has shifted. He is no longer a man suspected. He is a man convicted. The desert silence that once protected him has lost its power. For the family, the verdict triggers memories long suppressed. They revisit moments from 2001, now reframed through certainty. The what-if soften, replaced by what was. Does not heal them. Healing is not promised, but it anchors them. It gives shape to grief that once floated without edges. The community reacts too. Conversations spark about missed signs, about trust, about how easily routine masks danger. Parents hold their children a little tighter. People look at familiar roads with unfamiliar eyes. The desert, once romanticized, feels colder now, more complicit. As sentencing approaches, victim impact statements are prepared. Words chosen carefully, rewritten endlessly. How do you summarize 20 years of waiting? How do you explain the cost of not knowing? There is no template for this kind of loss. Only honesty. The cold case that once existed only as a question mark now has a period at the end of its sentence. Not because everything is resolved, but because accountability has been assigned. History has been amended. And yet, even now, the story does not fully rest. Cold cases never truly do. They linger in the margins, reminders of how easily people vanish, how slowly truth moves, and how routine moments can carry consequences that echo for decades. The desert remains unchanged, stretching endlessly beneath the sky, indifferent to verdicts and guilt and time. But for the people who lived inside this mystery, who carried it through years of silence, something has finally shifted. The waiting is over. What comes next is something else entirely. Sentencing day arrives without spectacle, quiet and deliberate. The way the justice system insists on handling moments that carry irreversible weight. The courtroom fills again, familiar faces returning to the same seats, each one carrying a different version of the past. The defendant is let in, no longer cloaked in uncertainty, now defined by a verdict that follows him like a shadow. He looks smaller somehow, diminished not by age but by finality. There is no curiosity left in his eyes, only calculation, and beneath it, something that resembles resignation. The judge enters. The room rises. The ritual proceeds. This is not about drama. This is about consequence. Prosecutors speak first, grounding their request in the accumulation of harm. They do not embellish. They do not perform. They outline the length of time the victim was missing, the suffering endured by her family, the deliberate nature of the crime inferred through concealment and silence. They speak of choices made and repeated, of opportunities to come forward that were ignored, of a life interrupted and never restored. They argue that time does not mitigate responsibility, it magnifies it. The defense responds with restraint. They acknowledge the verdict without conceding its righteousness. They point again to the age of the case, to the absence of a confession, to the limits of evidence. They ask for leniency not because of innocence, but because of time already lived, because punishment now, they argue, serves retribution more than rehabilitation. It is an argument as old as the law itself. The judge listens impassive, notes taken in neat lines. When it is time to speak, the room stills completely. The sentence is delivered in measured language, firm but unadorned. A term that reflects severity without indulgence. a recognition of both the crime and the years that passed without accountability. The words echo briefly, then settle, becoming reality. The family exhales together, a collective release that feels almost involuntary. This is not relief. Relief suggests lightness. This is gravity lifting slightly, just enough to stand upright again. Tears fall quietly. Hands squeeze tighter. 20 years of suspended grief finally touches ground. The defendant absorbs the sentence without visible reaction. No outburst. No protest. Only a slight nod, as if acknowledging something long delayed. He is led away, the door closing behind him with a sound that carries far more meaning than its volume suggests. For him, the future has narrowed to routines defined by walls and schedules. For everyone else, something else begins. Outside the courthouse, microphones appear. Questions shouted. Narratives demanded. The family declines to engage. They have spoken enough through years of waiting. Words now feel inadequate, even dangerous. They leave together, moving as a unit, unwilling to let this moment be fractured into headlines. In the weeks that follow, the case becomes a reference point. Law enforcement agencies cite it in training sessions. Cold case units point to it as proof that patience and technology can align. Journalists revisit it with retrospective clarity, piecing together the path from disappearance to conviction, emphasizing the traffic stop that reopened everything. The randomness of it fascinates people. The idea that justice can hinge on something so small unsettles them. But investigators know better. The stop was not the solution. It was the trigger. The solution came from years of preservation, from decisions not to discard evidence, from the refusal to close a file simply because it was inconvenient to keep it open. That is the part that rarely makes headlines. The family begins a different kind of process now. Not closure. That word remains elusive. Instead, they work toward integration, learning how to carry certainty after years of speculation. They visit places they once avoided. They speak her name more freely, no longer fearing that doing so will reopen wounds. The wounds never closed. They simply changed shape. Memorials are discussed. Not grand ones. Something modest. Something permanent. A marker that says she was here, she mattered, she is not just a case number or a headline. The desert, which once hid the truth, will now hold memory instead. The community settles slowly. Fear fades into vigilance. Conversations sparked by the case lead to changes, small but meaningful. Neighborhood watch groups revive. Parents talk to children about awareness without panic. The roads feel the same, but they are no longer invisible. Routine has lost its innocence. For law enforcement, the case leaves a residue. Satisfaction, yes, but also humility. They revisit old files with renewed attention, wondering what else might be waiting. What other names might resurface if chance and persistence collide again. Not every case will be solved. They know this. But some will. And that knowledge changes how they work. The defendant files an appeal as expected. The process continues, quieter now, more technical. Legal arguments replace narrative. The conviction stands through early challenges, each one reinforcing the outcome. Time, which once shielded him, now works against him, narrowing options rather than expanding them. Years later, the case is still cited, not for its sensational elements but for its patience. For the way it unfolded without confession, without eyewitnesses, without a moment of cinematic clarity. It is remembered as a case built piece by piece, through discipline rather than luck, through refusal rather than revelation. The desert remains what it has always been. Fast. Silent. Indifferent. But its role has changed. It is no longer a void that swallowed answers. It is a witness, unwilling but permanent, etched into the story as the place where truth waited until it could no longer be ignored. And somewhere on a highway that looks like every other highway, cars continue to pass beneath the same sky. Patrol lights flash and fade. Routine traffic stops happen every night, unnoticed, unremarkable. Most of them lead nowhere. But one of them did. And because of that, a woman who vanished in 2001 is no longer just a question. She is a truth. A loss acknowledged. A life counted. The cold case is no longer cold. What remains is the echo of it, the reminder that silence is not the same as absence, and that even the smallest interruption can one day force the past to speak. Time moves differently after a case ends. Not faster, not slower, just altered. reshaped by the absence of anticipation. For 20 years, every day carried the same question, unresolved, pressing lightly but constantly against the lives of those who remembered. Now that question has an answer, and the space it once occupied feels unfamiliar, almost hollow. The story is over in the eyes of the law, but stories like this do not end cleanly. They linger, echoing through routines that no longer feel routine at all. The appeal wins its way through the system quietly, stripped of the emotional charge that fueled the trial. Legal briefs replace testimony. Arguments are reduced to citations and precedents. The defendant's name appears in appellate records alongside phrases like procedural integrity and evidentiary sufficiency, language that feels distant from the human cost but necessary all the same. The conviction holds. The sentence stands. Each denial reinforces the same conclusion. Time did not erase responsibility. It only postponed it. For the family, the appeals process is a low hum in the background, an administrative aftershock. They have already crossed the hardest threshold. What remains is adjustment, learning how to live without waiting, learning how to answer questions without the reflexive, "we don't know," learning how to let memories surface without immediately scanning them for clues. They begin to tell stories again. Ordinary ones. Childhood moments. Habits. Small details that were once too painful to revisit because they might have contained something important. Now they are just memories, imperfect and precious. The case no longer consumes every conversation. Her name is spoken without qualifiers, without explanations. She is not the missing woman anymore. She is simply herself. In the community, the case settles into collective memory. It becomes a reference point, a story retold when people talk about persistence, about the dangers of assuming that time equals safety. New residents hear about it in fragments, often beginning with the same detail everyone remembers: the traffic stop. The randomness of it still unsettles people. It suggests that order is fragile, that lives can hinge on moments so small they barely register. Law enforcement agencies continue to dissect the investigation, not for celebration, but for lessons. Training modules are updated. Evidence retention policies are reinforced. The case is cited when arguing against closing files too quickly, against discarding items that seem useless at the time. The message is clear. Technology evolves. Context changes. What means nothing today may mean everything tomorrow. Detectives who work the case move on, but not entirely. Some retire. Some transfer. Some stay where they are, quietly reshaped by the experience. Cold cases leave marks on the people who chase them, a mixture of hope and restraint, belief and caution. Solving one does not make the others easier. It makes their weight more apparent. The defendant adapts to incarceration with the same control he displayed throughout the process. He appeals where he can. He studies routines. He blends into the background. But there is no escaping the permanence of his situation. The desert that once protected him is now a memory, replaced by walls that do not forget. Years pass. Media interest fades, replaced by newer stories, fresher tragedies. The headlines that once declared a cold case cracked are archived, buried beneath layers of digital noise. But the impact remains for those closest to it. Anniversaries take on a different tone now. Less about pleading for answers and more about remembrance. Candles are lit without urgency. Silence feels less hostile. A memorial is placed, modest and deliberate. Not at the site where evidence was found, but somewhere meaningful, somewhere chosen. People gather quietly. There are no speeches that try to explain the unexplainable. Just acknowledgement. Just presence. The desert wind moves through, indifferent but constant, carrying sound away before it can linger too long. The case enters academic discussions as well. Criminologists analyze it as an example of delayed resolution, of how routine encounters can intersect with long-dormant investigations. It is cited in debates about statute limitations, about the ethics of prosecution decades after a crime. It becomes data stripped of names and faces, even as those names and faces remain vivid to the people who lived with them. And still, something about the case resists reduction. It refuses to become just a lesson, because beneath every analysis lies the same uncomfortable truth. This was not inevitable. It was possible because of a sequence of decisions, both careful and careless, spread across years. Could have ended differently. That awareness lingers like a quiet warning. The highway where it began looks unchanged. Asphalt fades and is repainted. Signs are replaced. Traffic ebbs and flows. Thousands of cars pass through without incident, each driver unaware of the history embedded in the stretch of road beneath them. The patrol lights still flash at night, briefly illuminating faces that will never matter again once the stop ends. Routine continues, mostly harmless, mostly invisible. But for those who know the story, routine has lost its innocence. Every stop carries potential. Every delay feels heavier. The idea that nothing ever happens here no longer holds. The family visits the highway once, unannounced, unmarked. They stand at the shoulder, listening to the rush of passing vehicles, feeling the wind push against them. There is no ceremony, no closure ritual, just a moment of recognition that this ordinary place became a hinge point, the instant when the past finally caught up to the present. They leave without lingering. There is nothing more to take from it. Cold cases are often framed as puzzles, as intellectual challenges waiting to be solved. This one resists that framing. It was not solved by brilliance alone, or by luck alone, but by endurance. By the refusal to let absence become erasure. By systems designed to remember even when people cannot. The case now lives in records, in training manuals, in the quiet confidence of detectives who know that waiting is not the same as failing. It lives in a family learning how to exist without uncertainty. It lives in a desert that no longer holds the secret it once guarded. Justice did not arrive swiftly. It did not arrive cleanly. But it arrived. And that fact alone changes how the story is told. Because when people speak of the Arizona cold case of 2001 now, they do not speak only of disappearance or mystery. They speak of accountability, of the way the past can resurface without warning, of how a single routine decision can reopen a door sealed by decades. The echo of that moment still travels, quiet but persistent, a reminder that silence is temporary, and that even the longest winter of unanswered questions can end, not with certainty but with truth. And truth, once spoken, does not fade easily. Silence returns in a different shape after justice is declared. Not the sharp, suffocating quiet that followed the disappearance, but a softer, uneasy stillness, like air after a storm has passed but the ground remains soaked. The case is closed on paper, sealed with signatures and dates, yet its gravity continues to pull at everything around it. Closure, it turns out, is not a door that shuts. It is a weight that shifts. In the months after sentencing, the system moves on with mechanical efficiency. Files are boxed, labeled, archived. Evidence is cataloged for long-term storage, no longer handled with urgency but with protocol. The physical remnants of the crime, items once scrutinized under bright lights, are reduced to inventory numbers. They no longer ask questions. They simply exist, preserved as proof that the story happened, that it was real. For the detectives, the end brings an unexpected disorientation. For years, the case had been a constant presence, a mental bookmark never removed. It shaped instincts, sharpened patience, hardened skepticism. Now there is space where the case used to be, and filling it feels wrong. New investigations arrive, demanding attention, but something fundamental has shifted. They know now with certainty that time is not the enemy it once appeared to be. Time can conceal, but it can also expose. Some detectives revisit their notes privately, not out of necessity but compulsion. They reread early reports, witness statements dismissed as noise, overlook details that only gained meaning decades later. The exercise is not self-punishment. It is reckoning. An attempt to understand how close the truth was even then and how easily it slipped through the cracks. The community continues its quiet recalibration. Conversations change tone. Where there was once speculation, there is now reflection. People admit how wrong they were, how confidently they assumed the outcome would always remain unknown. The case becomes a reminder of humility, of how little control anyone truly has over narrative and outcome. At local diners and gas stations, the story resurfaces occasionally, usually late at night, usually spoken in low voices. Someone will mention the traffic stop again, shaking their head, marveling at the randomness of it all. Someone else will counter that it was not random at all, that it was fate or inevitability or consequence finally catching up. No one agrees. No one needs to. The family experiences the strangest shift of all. With the question answered, They are confronted by emotions they had postponed for decades. Grief, now unburdened by uncertainty, arrives in full force. It is heavier than expected. Anger resurfaces, sharper without the distraction of searching. Relief intertwines with sorrow, creating a complicated, exhausting mix. They attend therapy, some individually, some together. They talk about guilt, about moments of normalcy they once felt ashamed of. They talk about rage, about how the world continued while they stood still. They talk about the strange fear of forgetting now that remembering is no longer an act of resistance. Her room, preserved for years, finally changes. Not erased, not emptied, but transformed. Items are sorted with care. Clothes folded, letters reread. Objects touched slowly, deliberately. Nothing feels disposable. Each decision is deliberate, an act of reclaiming agency after so many years without it. Outside, life continues with its relentless pace. New crimes dominate headlines. New cold cases begin their slow drift toward obscurity. The media moves on as it always does, leaving behind a handful of long-form retrospectives and true crime specials that reduce decades of pain into consumable arcs. The family learns to avoid them, or sometimes they watch in silence, measuring how close the retelling comes to the truth they lived. The defendant's world contracts further. Prison routines strip days of distinction. Appeals exhaust themselves. Hope narrows to technicalities. His name becomes less recognizable with each passing year, fading into the mass of others who believe time would protect them. It does not. Occasionally letters arrive, journalists, students, strangers seeking meaning. Some are respectful. Some are intrusive. Most are ignored. The story no longer belongs to the public in the way it once did. It belongs to those who carried it through the years of not knowing. The desert remains unchanged in its indifference. Heat shimmers above the ground. Wind erases footprints almost as soon as they are made. It is a place that keeps secrets well, but not forever. Investigators return there once more, not officially, not for work, but for understanding. They stand where evidence was found, letting the scale of time settle in. The desert did not solve the case. It merely waited. Training academies begin referencing the investigation as a case study in patience and persistence. Recruits listen wide-eyed, imagining themselves as the ones who will crack the next impossible file. Instructors temper their enthusiasm. They emphasize restraint. They stress that resolution is rare, that obsession can destroy careers as easily as it can save them. But they also acknowledge the power of refusal, the refusal to let a case die quietly. Technology continues its march forward. New forensic techniques emerge, more precise, more invasive. Cold cases once deemed unsalvageable are reopened, their evidence re-examined under sharper lenses. The Arizona case becomes part of that lineage, a proof point cited when budgets are approved, when skeptics question the value of revisiting the past. Yet no advancement can replicate the human element that sustained the investigation. The phone calls returned late at night. The notes taken after official hours. The quiet conviction that absence does not equal innocence. That belief, fragile and stubborn, carried the case further than any machine ever could. The family marks the anniversary differently now. Not with pleas or press releases, but with rituals of their own design. A shared meal. A walk. A candle lit and allowed to burn out naturally. They talk openly about her, no longer fearing that joy might dilute the seriousness of her loss. Laughter returns cautiously, like an old friend unsure of its welcome. In private moments, they wonder who they would be if the case had never been solved. The question has no answer. Their lives were shaped by waiting, by not knowing. That chapter cannot be undone. All they can do is move forward carrying both versions of themselves, the ones forged by uncertainty, and the ones learning to live beyond it. The highway patrol continues its work, unaware drivers pulling over, lights flashing, routines unfolding thousands of times a day. Most stops end uneventfully. A few change lives forever. The officers involved know this now with a clarity that cannot be trained, only earned. Every interaction is a potential intersection of past and present. And somewhere within the vast archive of unsolved cases, there are files waiting for technology, waiting for witnesses to age into honesty, waiting for chance to intervene. The Arizona case whispers to them all, A quiet promise that waiting is not the same as forgetting. Justice, when it finally arrives, does not restore what was lost. It does not rewind time or soften memory. It simply acknowledges reality, says this happened, it mattered, and it will not be ignored. That acknowledgement reverberates long after the courtroom empties, long after the headlines fade. It lives in altered routines, in cautious hope, in the knowledge that the past is never truly buried. The case may be closed, but its echo continues, moving through systems and families and empty stretches of road, reminding anyone who listens that even the coldest case can still burn. The story does not end with a verdict. It never does. It dissolves instead, thinning out into everyday life, seeping into places where no courtroom language can reach. Years pass, quietly stacking themselves one atop another, until the case is no longer something that happened recently, but something that happened once, a marker in time that people reference with a pause before speaking, as if instinctively lowering their voices. In Arizona, the landscape absorbs everything. Highways stretch endlessly, indifferent to history. Towns expand, contract, rename streets, demolish buildings. New families move in with no memory of what came before. Children grow up unaware that a disappearance once haunted these roads, that fear once traveled faster than traffic. And yet, the case lingers, embedded not in signs or plaques but in habits, in caution, in the way people look twice when something feels slightly off. For those closest to it, the case becomes something quieter, more internal. Not a headline, not a mystery, but a scar. Scars do not ache constantly. They flare unexpectedly. A smell. A song on the radio. A stretch of desert at dusk. Memory surfaces without warning, sharp and vivid, then fades again, leaving behind the familiar dull pressure of knowing. The family reaches a stage they never imagined during the years of waiting. A future that is not defined by the search. Feels disloyal at first. Planning years ahead once felt impossible, even cruel. Now it feels necessary. They speak about aging, about grandchildren, about where they want to be buried. Conversations that once ended in silence now end in resolve. They no longer introduce her through the lens of tragedy. They speak of her humor, her stubbornness, her habits. The way she laughed too loudly. The way she hated being late. These details matter more now than timelines and evidence ever did. They are reclaiming her from the case that once threatened to swallow her whole. The investigators, too, carry the afterimage of the case. Long after retirement parties and desk cleanouts, the story follows them. People ask about it at gatherings, framing it as triumph, as vindication. The detectives nod, smile politely, but they know better. They know how much was lost along the way. How close the case came to being forgotten entirely. How many nights ended with nothing but unanswered questions, and the quiet hum of fluorescent lights. They speak of it rarely, and when they do, they emphasize the waiting. The years when nothing happened. The times when believing felt foolish. They want younger officers to understand that solving a cold case is not about dramatic breakthroughs. It is about endurance. About showing up again and again, even when history suggests it will not matter. The defendant fades further into obscurity. Prison time erodes identity. His name is no longer spoken with intensity, no longer surrounded by speculation. He becomes another inmate, another number, another life narrowed by concrete and routine. Whatever control he once believed he had is gone. The past he tried to outrun caught him eventually, quietly, without spectacle. There is no final confrontation. No last confession that ties every loose end into a neat conclusion. Some questions remain unanswered, suspended in the space between evidence and memory. Why certain choices were made. Whether there were moments of doubt. Whether he ever believed he would be caught. The case does not need those answers to stand. Truth does not require completeness. It requires honesty. The community absorbs that lesson slowly. They stop asking for missing pieces. They stop expecting clarity where none exists. Instead, they acknowledge what is known and let the rest remain unresolved. It is an uncomfortable discipline, but one learned through years of living with uncertainty. True crime storytellers eventually return to the case, drawn by its long arc and delayed resolution. They analyze it, narrate it, package it. Some get it right. Some miss the point entirely. They focus on the shock, the twist, the routine traffic stop that changed everything. Fewer understand the real center of the story, the time in between. The decades when nothing happened, And yet everything was happening all at once. The family disengages from those retellings. Their story no longer needs an audience. It has served its purpose. They choose privacy over participation, memory over exposure. In doing so, they take back what the case once demanded from them. The desert remains vast and unchanged. It does not commemorate, does not apologize, simply exists. Evidence was once hidden there, swallowed by sand and heat, guarded by isolation. Now it holds nothing but silence. The land has moved on as land always does. Highway patrol officers still make stops along the same roads. Lights flash. Radios crackle. Most encounters end with warnings, tickets, brief exchanges that fade instantly from memory. But every officer knows now, whether consciously or not, that history can be riding in the passenger seat. That routine is a thin layer over chaos. Cold cases across the country continue to wait. Boxes on shelves. Files in databases. Names that have not been spoken aloud in years. The Arizona case does not promise that all of them will be solved. It offers something more modest and more honest. Proof that waiting is not pointless, that time does not automatically absolve, that silence is not the same as innocence. For the family, the final transformation is subtle. One day, they realize they have gone an entire afternoon without thinking about the case. Not deliberately, not guiltily, simply did not arise. The realization brings a moment of panic, followed by relief. This is what healing looks like, they decide. Not forgetting but allowing space for other things to exist alongside memory. They still visit her grave, still speak her name, still mark the day she vanished. But the rituals no longer feel desperate. They feel grounded, anchored. The past is no longer a threat pulling them backward. It is a chapter, painful and permanent, but no longer unfinished. And that is the quiet truth of this case. It did not end with a dramatic revelation or a perfect sense of justice. It ended with acceptance, with lives reshaped rather than restored, with an understanding that some stories conclude not with resolution, but with endurance. The Arizona cold case of 2001 is no longer a question mark. It is a statement, a reminder that even the most ordinary moments can carry unimaginable weight, that time can bury but it can also expose. That truth does not announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits decades hidden in plain sight, until a flashing light on a dark road finally brings it back into view. And when it does not shout. It lingers. In memory. In caution. In the knowledge that the past is never truly gone, only waiting.